The story starts off with Mizuto, who is an ugly, nerdy loser whose freaky ex becomes his sister. Confused? Well, they broke up in middle school, and I will leave the rest of the spoilers for later. With that said, let's dive into the story. When Mizuto and his freaky ex thought they would never see each other again, their parents had some different plans. They literally got married to each other. So, to cope with the situation which was in front of them, the step-siblings decided to see who had the most riz. And whoever gets rizzed up first loses and has to do what the older sibling wants. As the game begins, Yume starts to touch Mizuto's books like any normal sibling would do, and just like any normal situation between any normal siblings, Mizuto instantly gets annoyed. However, this concern grows greater as she starts getting closer to his secret Pandora's box. And to keep her from discovering his deep, dark secret, Mizuto sincerely apologizes to Yume for causing her trouble and begs her to stay on good terms. From there on, his riz reminds her of the Mizuto from middle school, and with red cheeks, she whispers his last name. And seeing Yume blushing and all, Mizuto can't help but grin ear to ear. Guess why? Well, because he won the game and she freaking lost it. Now Mizuto punishes her by asking to be called beside his first name. Yume, who is already blushing as hell, now turns beet red but eventually manages to call him Big Brother. This makes Mizuto's heart skip a beat as his lifelong dream of being called Oni-chan finally comes true. He composes himself and tells her not to seek trouble again. However, we all know how he wants her to do that again and again. According to our boy, she is too dumb to outwit his genius, and well, this makes the poor girl cry, and she reminds him how he had never ever said anything this mean to her in the past. Mizuto starts regretting his words immediately and proceeds to pat her head gently in hopes of being forgiven. But Yume slaps his hand away and tells him that she hates him now before sprinting out of the room. The next morning, they begin high school, where Mizuto and Yume both curse their legendary bad luck since not only are they the same grade, but also in the same class. Quite a luck. Mizuto, taking the lead, advises his stepsister to treat this as a new beginning and as a means to quit being a freak. She needs to learn to make some good friends. Yume, on the other hand, keeps wondering why in the world he was showering her with such free advice. She leaves Mizuto dumbstruck when she leaves his side to give the opening speech. Her master plan works as all the girls in the class flock around her start admiring her confidence. Meanwhile, Mizuto finds himself surrounded by Yume's fanboys, who are all trying to be friends with him in hopes of getting a chance of clapping for her. Later at home, Yume asks if it bothers him that they are treating him like a stepping stone. However, Mizuto said it is better to just ignore them. The next day, when he is greeted by the Yume simps, Yume grabs Mizuto's arm and presses it against her melons. A way of telling others to fuck off, probably. The poor simps, seeing this sudden intimacy between the step-siblings, try reminding them that they are brother and sister. But Yume brushes them off by calling herself a Brocken. In the evening, when the parents were not home, the step-siblings decide to cook something for dinner. Yume grows quite conscious since she can't forget the feel of Yume's arms pressed against her jiggly melons, and it annoys her a lot when Mizuto says he has forgotten about it already. Now she has started thinking that her curves don't attract him at all, so she decides to test Mizuto by showing up in front of him in a towel, with her huge melons on display. And seeing all this obscenity, Mizuto chokes on his drink and questions what in the world is she trying to do. However, Yume has the ultimate justification ready. It's her home, she can dress however she likes. She has gotten what she was trying to get. The blushing red face has already satisfied her, and now she settles next to him and asks if he is a cultured man who finds his stepsister attractive. In response, all she gets is the beet red face of Mizuto. Excited and all, she decides to push him further, but accidentally her towel comes loose and almost gives the lucky guy a glimpse of heaven, a mistake that flusters her. And to make matters worse, Mizuto stands in front of her and steps closer, making her wonder if the guy is gonna make a move on her or what. However, all the guy does is simply drape her with his jacket, criticizing her recklessness. Oh boy, now the girl is embarrassed and she gets up to thank him but trips on his jacket. Trying to catch her, Mizuto ends up in a very intimate position on the sofa. And this sweet home Alabama moment turns romantic when Mizuto caresses her cheek and almost kisses her when they suddenly hear their parents' footsteps. Panicking, Yume hides underneath the sofa while Mizuto just sits there thinking what the hell he just did. The next day, a bigger loser, Kawanami, approaches Mizuto regarding Yume, who straight out refuses to be his wingman, stating he won't let the scum get close to Yume. But this is not enough to discourage the loser, who keeps claiming that all he wants is a good friendship. He then bribes Mizuto by showing him a side of a blushing Yume, who is fawning over her stepbrother's Gigachad Riz. Later, in the fitness class, a girl named Minami is spotted simping over Yume's melons. Apparently hers are flat. When Yume reveals that she was just like her a year ago, the girl excitedly hugs her. And that's how they become friends. In the gym class, Yume curses her weak athletic genes and struggles to keep up with Minami, who apparently is naturally gifted in this regard. But when she sees how unmotivated Mizuto is, she swears she is never gonna become like him. She later lifts weights, performs acrobatics, and runs a 50m dash, all of which completely exhausts her to the point where she faints. However, her knight in shining armor catches her just in time and reminds her she doesn't need to become Usain Bolt. Later, in the infirmary, Yume is seen admitting how she is not naturally athletic and she feels pathetic for pushing herself to the limits. Minami, however, feels happy to finally know her weakness. Although it embarrasses Yume at first, they become close friends eventually and begin their first names. Next day, Yume falls sick and Minami pesters Mizuto to the point that he has to bring her over to their home. However, when Yume sees Mizuto, she is reminded of the middle school days, and now she has started to simp over him again. Yume later thanks Minami for coming to see her. Minami, on the other hand, is all in for cooking porridge for her, and even forces Mizuto to help her in the kitchen. There, she starts asking weird questions like what he would do if he wants to bring a girl over while Yume is at home. However, he questions why she thinks an ugly nerd like him would even have a girl to take home. Minami, on the other hand, isn't gonna back off this easily. According to her, she is a talented psychic who reads faces and can easily tell he got dumped by his girl not too long ago. This, of course, hits a nerve and Mizuto refuses to reply at all, even when she keeps asking him. Meanwhile, the porridge is ready, and now Minami feeds Yume with her hands, making Mizuto and us wondering where exactly is the plot going. Once Minami leaves, he returns to Yume's room where she admits to being jealous and wonders why he and Minami are suddenly getting along so well. Mizuto explains it only appears like that since Minami is an extrovert and tells her to rest her head. However, she refuses to let him go and asks if he will let her hold his hand. Hesitantly, he allows her to do whatever she is doing, and even blushes when she presses it once again against her melons. The whole scene keeps reminding him of the past when they were a couple. After hours of being treated like her obedient dog, Mizuto lashes out at her when she realizes she has been faking her sickness all along. However, all she does is keep asking for forgiveness shyly. He agrees and gives her a gentle smile before returning to his room. One night, Yume recalls the dark history when she was a devoted follower of the Mizuto cult. She curses her days when she used to do all the cringy stuff like worshipping everything she received from him and even kept it all safe in her secret treasure box. Later that night, she finds herself spiraling down the same rabbit hole as she holds his trunks, fighting back her feminine urges. However, soon enough her teenage hormones take over and being of course a cultured woman she sniffs. But soon she panics as she starts wondering what Mizuto would think if he ever finds out about this someday. This takes her deeper into the dark realm where she starts wondering how he would punish her. He would spank her and force her to call him Big Brother. Surprisingly, that didn't really feel that bad to her. She decides to return his boxers as she would rather die than see her R-rated dreams come true. Yume stalks in and waits till he falls asleep so she can enter his room. But as soon as she reaches for the doorknob, the door swings open revealing something she was not expecting at all. Mizuto was there holding her bras. Equally stunned, they use a rock-paper-scissors game to settle who would make a confession first, and just as expected, Yume loses. She then starts explaining how she could care less about his nasty undies on a normal day, but since she was thinking about the past, she couldn't help it. Excited by what he is hearing, he asks her to explain more, giving the reason that they need to know each other better now that they are siblings. Yume then reveals that she even kept everything he had ever given her when they were dating, and while she is telling all that, she finds Mizuto blushing. She then asks him if this talk is exciting him, but he lies that he finds it all actually disgusting. Now that it is Mizuto's turn to confess, he just says that he found the bra on the bathroom floor, and before he could put it back, their father showed up, and he was forced to bring it to his room. Yume refuses to believe him and worries that he might be doing something nasty with her bra, like poking into her cups. Mizuto hits back by saying he is also worried she might have sniffed his boxers. Both of them gulp at the accusations and instantly deny them, knowing that they are both lying. Yume changes the subject by reminding him they have broken their sibling rule as a penalty. Mizuto proposes that they follow one order from each other that doesn't break their rule, and Yume agrees. Yume gets upset when she sees Mizuto talking to an unidentified female in a cafe the following day because she looks so much like her old self. She inquires about this girl in her school, but to no success. Confusion ensues as Minami remarks that any shy girl could fall for Mizuto's riz with ease. Yume finds herself in even more pain when she gets home and becomes enraged at the idea of him having an affair with someone else. She takes some images of the shoes and connives to get Mizuto to run an errand for her, using what little sense she still has left. She heads to his room to catch the girl red-handed after his retreating footsteps indicate he's gone, only to be let down by Mizuto's incomprehensible expression. When she dashes back to their front door, she sees that her target is following in those footsteps, but those loafers are gone. She claims Mizuto sent her away, but he doesn't believe her when he says no one was brought home. His investigator is finally roused when she shows him the picture she took. He demands to be left alone, indicating that he is fatigued, and he blatantly acknowledges that he did it. Yume thinks of a fairly dirty picture that the words conjure up, and she concludes that he must be tired because of his plot development with that woman. Subsequently, as she withers away in her chamber, Mizuto remembers encountering an enigmatic girl in the library who proposed marriage to him. Later on, she exposed herself to be Minami in disguise, and she told him that she intended to marry him. He contacted Kawanami for help shortly after Yume, thinking that Minami was the one who had broken into their home. The idiot explains that Minami is a creepy, compulsive person who annihilates everyone she falls in love with. After just 3 months of dating, even her ex-boyfriend was hospitalized due to her curse. Mizuto gets scared of this, so he knocks on Yume's door and asks her out on a date after getting advice from Kanami. Yume wonders if going on a date with Mizuto would be against their sibling rule as she waits for him to arrive the next day. She compares their day to a family outing and manages to convince herself in part. But Mizuto freaks out when she shows up all suited up. She swoons like a requisitive fangirl at his drip, realizing that all of her fantasies had finally come true. Yume tells herself to keep being a rude bitch so he doesn't find out, even though she's utterly losing it. But as he grabs her hand and pulls her head first, all of the hard work that went into the performance is undone. As this is going on, Kawanami and Minami are following them while dressed as detectives, waiting for the sister act to go wrong at the aquarium. Mizuto gets ready to enchant Yume and show Minami that he is the only one who has the ability to clap her. Following Kanami's terrible advice, he starts off by praising her outfit, which falls flat and makes him feel bad about being such a pansy. It unexpectedly works though, because Yume blushes and thanks him, instantly boosting his self-esteem. Now that they are on cloud 9, he grabs Yume by the shoulder. Being a sophisticated woman, she gets high off of his aroma and questions why he is suddenly so nice and smells so good. Just before she succumbs to his appeal though, she summons her composure and instructs him to move his hand. Though he complies with her orders, he questions why this Tate is such a pain in the neck. Later, he questions why he is attempting to help her, given that she isn't even his girlfriend, and that it was she who made the acquaintance of an obsessive maniac. However, Yume gets lost and ends up somewhere under a canopy as she counts her blunders. When Mizuto phones her at that moment, she apologizes for stirring up trouble and says she expects to be punished. But he assures her that he's going to get her and that it's not her fault. Yume is reminded of their first date from middle school by his surprising compassion. She felt like disappearing back then as well, but Mizuto assured her it wasn't her fault. He found her after hours of hunting and offered her something to drink. Mizuto informs her that she needs to get her sense of direction restored as history repeats itself, and they start arguing like they always do. Feeling more relaxed, they carry on with their date by critiquing each other's bad book choices and talking about conspiracies. Minami, on the other hand, is jealous of the connection from a distance. As the sibling date draws to a close, Mizuto questions why he acts like a little insecure child and continually ruining the things he loves. At that moment, Minami appears, confessing to breaking into his home and pleading for forgiveness. She begs him not to tell Yume about it and inquires as to whether he would like to be the father of her future offspring. The Gigachad declines once more, but she says that finding someone to replace him is the only way to correct her. When Mizuto gets back home later, Yume threatens to use her punishment to get even after his picture. When he says yes, she goes crazy and adds as many photos as she can to her gallery. Mizuto notices her excitement and offers to fulfill one more wish. Acting like a brazen fangirl, she approaches him from behind and asks him to speak in her ear. Yume gives him a loving embrace in return as he agrees with her desire. When Kawanami asserts the following day that he is an authority on Minami, Mizuto begins to wonder if he has ever become seriously ill. He responds that it was in middle school, proving that he was, in fact, the notorious moron who had clapped Minami. Yume begs Mizuto to go acquire a gift for their mother one day, while he is living in his weeb rituals. She says that they cannot express their intense sibling love in that way, even when he tells her to go alone. Even yet, he declines, preferring to rot at home rather than go shopping for his ex-mother. But when Yume appears in front of him looking all suited up, he suddenly changes his mind and lets go of his beloved comic. She's eager to see his response and questions why, if she applied cosmetics and received a penalty point for their game, he's flirting with her stepsister. The plot advances when he finds himself in a sexual position with Yume on a train a short while later and she orders him not to move. When they get to the market, they argue over what to get their mother, but ultimately decide on an arrangement of flowers. Yume notices something strange about Mizuto, even though they are both delighted of their achievement, and the gesture brings her to tears. Later that night, she sneaks a glimpse at him as he honors his late mother, only to be caught by surprise. Mizuto replies that he doesn't remember much about her because she died when he was a baby when she asks about her. Yume rests on his shoulder, offering emotional support to Mizuto, who is touched by it as she feels discouraged. Later on, he proposes that they give their parents a private honeymoon as a Mother's Day gift. Yume is concerned that they won't have enough money for vacation vouchers, but Mizuto suggests that the two of them spend a day away from home rather than their parents. He says that they can only reserve a love motel at most due to their limited resources and status as students. She misinterprets, though, and adamantly declines to spend the night with him. Then, as Kawanami and Minami are neighbors, he suggests that they spend the night in their homes instead, and Yume accepts. Yume starts to doubt Minami and Kawanami's relationship when they argue like a married couple during their sleepover. After hearing Kawanami's answer, Mizuto surmises that Minami and Kawanami are more than just neighbors, rather, they are childhood sweethearts. Assuming that they are just two people who have drifted apart, Kanami asks instead about Mizuto and Yume's relationship. He asks if Mizuto has tasted her luscious melons yet, to which he promptly responds in the negative. But when Yume's insults pour into his inbox, Kawanami decides to quit his entire profession and says it out loud, causing an enraged Yume to pound on the wall of their shared apartment. Mizuto avenges Kawanami by strapping himself into the bed and reciting aloud from his old journal. He reads about his desire of clapping Minami for the rest of their lives, and as soon as he does, Minami hits the same wall and orders him to set fire to the journal. To their dismay, the ex-couples find themselves having lunch at the same restaurant as the tumultuous day wears on into the evening. Mizuto finds it difficult to use a juice bar, while Kawanami and Minami make fun of each other's favorite foods. Yume makes him a cocktail and says it's understandable that a nerd like him hasn't used it before because he has no friends. Minami throws herself at Mizuto when they get back to their seats and begs him to tutor her for their impending midterm examinations. When he questions her about why she's suddenly become so close, he finds out that she's attempting to arouse Yume's jealousy. He advises Minami to approach Yume for assistance instead of him because Yume is a voracious reader and a superior teacher. But in spite of his arrogant assertion, Mizuto stays up all night studying in Kawanami's chamber, much to his annoyance. When questioned about his motivations, he merely replies, "I can't lose to Yume," which encourages Kawanami to surpass Minami's score as well. When Mizuto goes out onto the balcony later in the evening to get some fresh air, he finds Yume dressed as Kermit the Frog and gazing up at the moon. She becomes flustered when he chuckles at her and tells her that she looks cute. Yume whispers that the moon is beautiful, drawing a connection between this scene and her first meeting with Mizuto on a school camping trip. Mizuto is shocked and asks him what he would do if she told him she has loved him ever since their insignificant encounter. She finds it hard to believe that she remembers it. But he makes it quite clear that now that they have become a family, none of that matters. When she asks whether he thinks their parents would split up in the future, Mizuto responds that she thinks they'll spend their entire lives in this Alabama nonsense. As irritating as it may sound, Yume graciously declines Minami's offer to go home with her when exam season rolls around. Yume has to put in more effort than the other females because she is the best student in the class, but the moron doesn't understand why. Yume decides that she wants to finish first in the class tonight because that's where she belongs. She also put forth extra effort to beat Mizuto in a math exam during middle school after he had stomped her. But even when she reached the summit, he ignored her. She felt like some invisible, repulsive nerd as a result. However, you pointed out that given that she is a mystery novel otaku, it makes sense that she received the best math marks when they later met in a library. She married him that day in her head and never let go. That evening, Yume discovers him in the living room, experiencing what he describes as a spiritual experience, and she is furious to discover he isn't in his studies. They get into a fight, and she says it's because he believes he's some kind of unbeatable god that he always loses to her. Yume says he can't tell that's her allocated spot, while Mizuto wonders what it would be like to top her. Yume figures out her exam results the following day, but she feels intimidated by Mizuto's intelligence and resolves to follow him. She stomps out, wondering if he did it to assist her get the highest score, upon realizing that he did not answer one question. Concerned, their mother warns him to quit treating her like a piece of low-class garbage because she would sooner die than accept his generosity. Furious, Mizuto argues, "What's wrong with letting her have the spot he never wanted for myself?" Adding, "This behavior doesn't suit me, especially since she's the one who worships her public image." Yume runs off in tears, and as the results are revealed, Mizuto is overcome with regret. First-place finisher Mizuto makes fun of her second-place finish while remarking that he envies the little pressure it bears. Yume's relief and confusion over why she believed her entire personality was simply a grade paper serve as evidence that it is real. Yume is moved to tears when Minami and the others congratulate her on her relative win and realize that she won't be able to live without Mizuto if he continues to be the one person who understands her. When she looks for him in the library, she finds him hanging out with a new, attractive girl. This girl turns out to be Higashira, the introverted freak Mizuto refers to as his only buddy who shares his views. They read light novels and talk about friendship philosophy during their free time. She also wants him to put on her socks after they are finished. Despite not knowing what kind of kink this is, he still goes through with it. On their walk out that day, the two encounter Minami and Yume, and Higashira immediately hides behind Mizuto. Minami inquires about the identity of this new oddity, but Mizuto advises her to maintain her distance due to her shyness. Yume gets irritated when she sees that Higashira addresses him by his first name. Minami follows closely behind, confusing Mizuto. Yume behaves differently after that and treats him well, frequently bringing him his stuff and doing errands for him. He brings it up with Higashira, who suggests that he have a conversation with her because, for some reason, it irritates her. Mizuto dresses in Yume's most beloved costume and approaches her door bearing this in mind. She's startled to see him, but when he moves in her direction, her heart rate increases dramatically. She recoils as he caresses her neck and makes fun of her elevated pulse while she lies with her back against the wall. He wonders if it's typical for one sibling to become thirsty after the other just because the other dressed up and made her blush like a beet. She asks him what he wants and orders him to stop. He just says it's strange that she isn't making fun of me anymore, and he wants to know why. Yume confides in him despite her nervousness, telling him how envious she is of his side chick and asking if it's acceptable for siblings to feel this way. Mizuto tells her that's just plain gross, but he doesn't care because he knew she was repulsive from the start. Yume makes friends with Higashira the next day, and Yudo informs her that his stepsister thought Yume was cute. Higashira claims that, up until today, the only time she had ever wished she was a guy was when she received her period after hearing this and declaring that she felt like swallowing her own vomit. Yume remembers in middle school deciding to tell Mizuto she loved him the traditional manner. She wrote him a love letter over the summer break, and after repeatedly putting it off, she gave it to him. She lost herself in a profound existential dilemma as he read her letter. He, however, felt the same way, and they started dating. One day, Higashira discovers a letter similar to this one in her shoebox, but instead of it being a declaration of love, it is a threat from someone who is aware of her terrible secret. As she follows the directions in the letter, Minami and Yume ambush her in the diner, and they later admit that they were the ones who sent it. Higashira begs them not to reveal her as she believes they have learned she is the creator of a virtual streaming channel as their investigation into her romantic life gets underway. As shocked as she is, Minami clarifies that her true question was whether or not she had feelings for Mizuto. Yume wonders if Higashira really means that she loves him after being shocked to hear that she does. Yume shows a video of Mizuto to the geek, who doesn't comprehend what they mean, while Minami instills a heated picture in her mind. She flushes a deep scarlet as a sensual fantasy unfolds before her, and Yume takes a photo of her face to validate her emotions. Later, Higashira states she would like to just be friends with Minami rather than push her filthy self to approach him, even though Minami offers to help her get laid. Yume asks in a hurried manner if she would prefer engage in inappropriate behavior with Mizuto or remain in the friend zone indefinitely since her pessimism makes her think of her previous self. When the melancholy girl confesses that she wishes to flirt with him, the three set out to assist her in becoming occupied. While Higashira spends time with Mizuto at the library, Minami and Yume watch her from a distance, with Minami getting giddy by her enormous melons. Yume discovers that Mizuto has her underwear on display. She is embarrassed when the GigaChad casually informs her that he can see her underwear, shortly before they anticipate him moving. Higashira fears that Mizuto doesn't view her as a girl at their next meeting, but Minami tells her to utilize her greatest tool to combat this. She lets out pleased moans as Minami caresses her and tells her that once he tastes her melons, he won't forget how they feel. Higashira presses herself up against Mizuto's arm to test this, but he tells her straight out that he can feel her melons. To everyone's surprise, she acknowledges that she did it on purpose, explaining that she wanted Mizuto to experience the beauty of the genuine thing because he believes that flat is justice. But this steely man isn't giving up. Higashira tries to stand near to him and wear makeup in her next attempt to capture his attention. But all Mizuto does is play with her hair and lecture her about his personal space. But because she's a masochist, she finds pleasure in the taunting and ultimately concludes that she likes their connection. Later on, Minami tells Higashira that the sooner she professes her love, the better, even though she wants to give up trying. Yume gives her more encouragement, stating that Mizuto is probably going to date her because he appears content with her. She asks Mizuto to meet her behind the school as Yume and Minami lurk nearby, acting on their encouragement. Higashira welcomes Mizuto and tells him she's appreciative of his tolerance, their relationship, and the fact that he doesn't treat her strangely. As she tells him she loves him and wants to be his girlfriend, Yume listens with apprehension. Mizuto, despite her gratitude, declines her request, surprising everyone. Yume breaks down in tears as he tells her that he can only love the one person on his mind because he's such a simp. After being turned down, Higashira goes back into her friend zone and begs Mizuto to show her his bookcase. She questions whether the reason he doesn't seem interested is because he conceals R-rated publications there. He hits her out of frustration, and she begs him to be kinder if he really wants some. She grinds her melons into him, apologizes, and says she only wants to borrow some old novels after realizing she's simply grinding his gears. He grants her request since he has run out of other reasons. She goes shopping with Yume and Minami later on. Minami scolds Mizuto for her gaudy wardrobe, saying she can't meet up with him if she dresses like a car mechanic. Mizuto offers to buy her new clothes. Minami actually has a hidden agenda. For her own entertainment, she makes Higashira change into a variety of sexy costumes and touches her up. But when their shopping binge pays off, she advises Higashira to take up Yume's more laid-back fashion sense, while Yume chooses a different look. As Yume enters the changing area, she remembers how, on a date with Mizuto, her ugly previous self had worn something adorable and waited to receive compliments all day. At the end of the day, he called her ministered cute, but asked that she refrain from dressing like that while they hang out outside. She was immediately attracted to his possessive side, and ever since, she has based every item in her closet on Mizuto's preferences, believing her former self to be an insane masochist. To Minami's amazement, Yume chooses to show off her curves in some new, fitted attire. Later, after receiving approval from her deity Mizuto, she chooses to purchase it and outfits Higashira in a manner akin to Yume's. She shows up at Mizuto's house the following day, and he invites her in, telling his dubious parents that she's only a friend. Yume shows up to keep an eye on her sophisticated brother's questionable behavior while she admires his vast book collection. To calm Mizuto down, Higashira counters that since he's already declined to clap her once, nothing more can happen. Yume takes a seat and chooses to read a book as well, all the while keeping a close eye on her rival. To Higashira's dismay, after finishing her reading, she begs Mizuto to give her shoulders a massage, complaining that the weight of her melons is hurting them. He declines at first, but Mizuto eventually gives in when she starts rolling about on his bed to irritate him. When the massage starts, Higashira imitates the novel she just finished reading by making happy noises. Mizuto is annoyed and nearly breaks her bones as a form of retaliation. Yume, fed up with their blind conduct, charges them of having a hidden relationship. Yui refutes this accusation, while Higashira maintains they are simply friends and feels sorry for Mizuto for having a broken sister. As usual, Mizuto helps his friend with her socks, which enrages her even more. After that, Higashira tells Yume that she still has feelings for Mizuto, but more as a person than as a possible partner. Higashira gets flustered when Yume tells her that she is also her friend, despite her sincere feelings touching her. Higashira leaves to use the restroom. Yume goes back to Mizuto's room and asks him about their relationship. After referring to her as a special friend, Yume pulls off one of her socks and asks him to put it on for her, acting like a spoiled child. When he questions her about why she feels the need to measure herself against others, Yume responds that her intention is to use him as her temporary servant. Mizuto complies with the childlike request, but they both blush with shame as his fingertips inch closer to her skin. Mizuto's phone buzzes, and he dashes downstairs to assist his inquisitive parents who are questioning Higashira. Later, when he walks her home, she admits that they should keep reading books to her because she's still upset over being rejected by him. Mizuto becomes aware that he and Yume would never be able to be as close friends as he and Higashira after being reminded of their shared love of reading. Yume and Mizuto make their adult debut over the middle school summer, and he extends an invitation to her. He sits beside her on his bed, and their shoulders brush, sending thrills down their spines. As their faces get closer in the intensity of the moment, Yume shuts her eyes, ready for a kiss. She is dissatisfied when he leaves her with her mouth hanging open and goes to get a book. They sit quietly for hours reading it, and then he looks up at her, a determined expression in his eyes, and she pouts again, only to be left hanging as Mizuto escorts her home. Subsequently, Yume and Mizuto both question why he failed to reach adulthood with her. He wonders what type of wimp invites a female into his room and doesn't give her a round of applause after dropping her off. Yume is upset to be placed in a separate class than Mizuto in their third year and fears she will be viewed as strange. He promises her, though, that they will still get together to celebrate significant occasions like Christmas, and they make a pledge. One day, Yume says she's finally met a friend, and Mizuto congratulates her as she arrives late for their meeting. But he becomes bored of it when she talks to him about her new pals and pays him less and less attention. One evening, just as she barely manages to catch him leaving school, Mizuto snaps at her, telling her that he could care less about her friend. He subsequently says he regrets it and will make amends the next day. Yume leaves her companions behind to meet him, only to discover that he is having fun with a new woman when she gets there. Yume approaches him after she leaves, and he instantly apologizes and acknowledges that he was jealous. Instead, her overly suspicious ass accuses him of being a double dealer. When Mizuto tries to explain that this is his first conversation with the new female, she doesn't buy it and walks away. After a few days, they happen to run into each other while attempting to purchase the same book at a public library. Mizuto apologizes for his actions, lets her have it, and suggests they try again. Yume accepts, but as they make their way back, Yume observes that they aren't strolling hand in hand, and Mizuto complains that she didn't receive an apology in return. Later, fearing that they may never really make up, Yume sees him alone and is hesitant to ask him to the summer celebration. They miss each other and don't get together throughout the summer and don't get in touch on Valentine's Day, Christmas, or their anniversary. Eventually, on the day of graduation, they formally separate ways. 2 weeks after the separation, though, fate takes a humorous turn and brings them back together as step-siblings. He tells Yume that the book she is taking off Mizuto's shelf is the same one they read in his room together as they currently invade his privacy. He wonders if she didn't notice the blush since her mind was preoccupied with her naughty thoughts. He acknowledges that he was the chicken who wanted to sleep with her but was unable to, and she accuses him of inviting her when there was nobody else at home. They are both surprised to learn that they had intended to share a bed that day, so they continue to joke around until, predictably, they have a fight. Yume is alone in the house with Mizuto one rainy night when a cockroach emerges in her chamber and she has to deal with the worst disaster of a century. She goes to Mizuto for assistance, understandably terrified, but finds it difficult to describe the situation. They wind up sharing the bed and blaming each other in a hilarious turn of events. Yume responds, "I don't expect him to make a move on her when he couldn't do it even when they were dating," to Mizuto's question regarding her certainty. Mizuto remembers their time together as the night wears on as he keeps staring at her face. Yume calls him a pansy in the morning for not getting rid of the cockroach, and their parents make fun of Mizuto by comparing them to a long married couple. Their mother urges Yume to buy a swimsuit before they go for the country, and their father reminds them that they will be visiting shortly. She asks Mizuto if he wants to see her swimsuit as they are forced to go shopping together for some reason. He feels embarrassed right away and wonders why. Yume, who is equally anxious, tells him she's not sure which one to buy and promptly draws the curtains while arranging herself so that she appears to be a visual feast. Mizuto backs off and doesn't say anything important. Yume feels shy and wonders why he can't even congratulate her. He also wonders if she wants him to focus on her physique or her swimwear. She gets really angry at his comment and tells him to go to hell. They can't help but stop and stare when they pass the alley where they had their first kiss on the way home. Mizuto gets a little too close to Yume when her hat starts to blow in the wind and he tries to grab it. Yume shuts her eyes, sensing the intensity of the moment, but he just scowls at her and turns to go. Yume can't help but rage at her position on Mizuto's lap as a movie plays in front of them. Mizuto ruffles her hair, and she wonders if he considers her a girlfriend or a pet. Just when she thinks it can't get much worse, Higashira unzips her hoodie, revealing her bouncy melons and scratching her cleavage. Yume is concerned that if things continue as they are, they will be married by the end of the year and have 2 children by the following year. Mizuto eventually engages Higashira in a movie-related chat that Yume does not understand. Yume accuses her of being a filthy masochist and a Brocken before leaving. Yume looks at Mizuto when she is alone and realizes that he did not kiss her the other day because they cannot destroy their current life. Yume recalls feeling like an infatuated kitten the night after their first date when Mizuto called her. He informed her he called for no reason and then hung up owing to a low battery. She recalls being annoyed when he didn't chat with her thereafter, despite the fact that he could have done so with a charged phone. Currently, as the new Irito family visits Mizuto's hometown, an old hand greets them and worries if she and Mizuto get along well. Right then, a beauty named Madoka throws herself at Mizuto, while her younger brother Chikuma develops feelings for Yume. To welcome her, Madoka invites Yume to the riverside barbecue party and suggests that she wear a bikini. Madoka tells Yume that Mizuto's father had to raise him alone and had been through a lot. Just as Yume begins to realize her stepmother's struggle and sacrifice, Madoka embraces her and lusts after her slender waist and massive melons. She compliments her swimwear again and wonders whether her boyfriend chose it. Yume instead looks at Mizuto, and Madoka understands, recalling Mizuto's sad demeanor as a child. Yume, on the other hand, has no time to process this new information because Madoka quickly removes her jacket and leads her into the river, where the 2 hotties soak in the water. Chikuma flushes like a refined young man. Yume discovers Mizuto reading a book she has never seen at an old library later that evening. He tells her it's his great-grandfather's unpublished memoirs and asks her to read it. Before heading off for a bath, he tells her further that he has read it every year since he first found it. Yume reads it all night long by herself now that she is alone, and when it is over, she can't stop crying. She discovers an ancient stain left by Mizuto's tears as her tears ruin the final page, and she realizes why he likes this place's seclusion. Since the story is about his grandfather's first girlfriend, Yume asks Mizuto about his first love when he unexpectedly shows up. Initially taken aback, he reveals that she is a cheerful and smiling person, leading Yume to believe she is Madoka. The next day, Madoka notices her moaning and jokes that if she doesn't come to terms with her affections for Mizuto quickly, she'll go bald. Assist her. To his dismay, she subsequently drags Mizuto to a remote room and locks them in. When Yume doesn't respond to his question about what it's all about, he retreats to a corner and waits for her to gather her thoughts. Yume, in the meantime, experiences a range of feelings as she finally learns about his background and gets to know his family. She is also uncertain about how to respond to him. Pulling herself together, she sits down in front of him, calling him by name as she used to, and she tells him all the things she regrets, including not calling on Christmas and allowing him break them up. Mizuto smiles and lets her hug him as tears spring up in his eyes, and for a moment they are transported back in time. Yume later admits, when she has calmed down, that she was irritated when he thought Madoka was his first love. Yume blushes when Mizuto playfully tells her he's been chatting about her all along and denies ever having a crush on her. The next night, Madoka is agitated with Chikuma for looking so good in a traditional clothing. Yume is enchanted by Mizuto's arrival and begs him to allow her to capture his pictures. Misinterpreting, Madoka hands Yume's phone while posing with her. Yume is skeptical when he unlocks it instantly, but she is unable to question him. Their jokes continue even after they get to the fair, and Yume questions why he's bothering her when he despises crowds. Mizuto asks her the same question again, explaining that he gave up on refusing Madoka's bothersome request. But before she can respond, Madoka shows up and offers holding hands, much like she does with her younger brother. Yume holds Mizuto's hand despite his attempts to ignore her, thinking that if he gets lost, she will be held responsible as his older sister. Reluctantly giving in to tiredness, he finds a gaming booth where Madoka assists Chikuma in winning the big prize. Concerned about herself and Mizuto, Yume observes how closely they are standing and questions whether it is proper for siblings to do so. After the first two siblings are unsuccessful in winning anything, Madoka gives Mizuto the toy gun and he accepts to give it a shot. Yume grudgingly complies with Madoka's encouragement to assist him as his sister as he takes aim, shocking him by giving him a surprise embrace from behind. They work together to correct the gun's direction, and she tells him not to listen to her. But Yume loses her footing and tumbles over his back, hitting him with her melons. Despite losing aim as a result, he still manages to hit them with a soft toy, which Mizuto gives to the young child. Yume finds out that he likes a game character after wondering how he knew Chikuma wanted this. She is taken aback by his meticulous attention to detail and questions whether an alien has taken over his body. But Mizuto shifts the topic, asking if it was her intention to throw herself at him. He is relieved to learn that his sister isn't as sophisticated as he had assumed when she refutes the accusation. Subsequently, Yume's parents introduce her to another grandmother, who beams with relief that Mizuto is no longer alone. She wonders why he seems like a weak, lonely youngster to everyone in his family. However, they find that Mizuto has disappeared elsewhere before she has a chance to ask any more questions. Yume begins to understand everything when Madoka confesses that he does this annually prior to the fireworks. She understands that he's just the type who likes to be alone himself. He doesn't despise them or ignore them. He called her on this day 2 years ago, and now when she thinks back on his remarks to Higashira, she realizes that the only person he ever opened up to was her depressed former self. However, as Mizuto sprawls out in a shrine, he recalls how, like the main character in a dystopian tale, he always felt as though there was a hole in his heart. It was not until he met Yume one day that he realized he was always closer to fiction than reality. For the first time, someone left a lasting impression on his heart that literature could never replace, and she felt like a frail creature who would break if he wasn't there to hug her. As Yume arrives to the shrine at that moment, Mizuto wonders if she's there to make fun of his lack of social graces. She settles next to him and responds that she's always known he was a loser. She is reminded of the day he contacted her in the summer and notices that he did it from this location. She doubts why he decided to date her and comes to the realization that he really did love her. He puts the responsibility on fate, claiming that Higashira would have taken the one chair in his heart if they had met earlier. But it's Yume's now and forever, because that's the one he met. Mizuto looks on as the fireworks explode in front of them and starts to cry. Seeing this, Yume gives him a kiss and makes a promise to beat the living daylights out of anyone who attempts to usurp her seat in his heart, leaving him staring at her in awe. Higashira and Kawanami get into a fight after Mizuto presents her to the other members of the group after their vacation is over. He denies that Mizuto became friends with such a gorgeous woman so quickly and brands her a cunning fangirl. Higashira calls him a stalker for posing as Mizuto's friend. Yume and Mizuto watch the event from a distance, calling each other derogatory names, as Minami then strangles Kawanami and orders him to have his dirty mind checked. They choose to give their relationship another go, this time without feeling pushed by the past and their personal lives as step-siblings go on. Will their parents separate in order to provide them with this opportunity?